On the test, on the exams, then again, there is a choice. You don't have to reply to all questions. I don't know exactly, as far as I remember, there are 8 questions that you have to answer for. Which means get clear about what it is about, think first and then write. Don't start to write and then think. Which means that when we are talking about things, again we have to be clear about what it is. As I said, most of the essays had been about international trade, but this was not the major point, or is not the major point here now. But it is really to be clear about what is economics about. And this had been another topic which had been very common, economics and political economy. Which means, of course, that you are dealing, on the one hand, with what you may call behavioral science. How do people behave? How do they engage with the environment? With the economic aspect of resources and their distribution. But as well about government. This is one of the most controversial questions in economics and political economy. Political economy is not Marxist political economy. There had been many non-Marxists and even anti-Marxists as political economists. And there still are. And they are dominating in terms of the influence globally. You can thank them for the for the economic crisis globally, financial markets collapsing and. So be clear, even if you are engaging with a specific political economy, you are not alone. And this is what I said before, it is about controversy. It is kind of easy, simple, just to take this one position and work on this and present this. It is difficult to say, I have this position, I share this position, which I do, but I want to know, and I know about the others, and can kind of prove or have arguments against them, can prove that they are wrong. This is something as well where this question of government, external factors, is difficult. What is the government doing? It's so easy to get a wrong impression there. To say, here you have government intervention, and there you have freedom of government. Government doesn't interfere. And then you put labels onto it, and you say, against government intervention are the liberals, because they want the free market. They want to have a free society. They want to have no intervention by the state. And they are deregulating. Everything is open now. There are no SOEs anymore. If you look at the development in European countries in the West, postal service, electricity supply, airlines, it's all privatized, deregulated, free market, no government intervention. Then you look at the reality, it's amazing. The privatization of the British railway system, it was a state-run business. The privatization of this meant you have more people employed in state regulatory bodies to deal with the different private companies than you have had before to run the state business. So it's not simply about government intervention and non-government intervention, external factors and not, but it is as well about what do we define as government intervention, how do we define the role of government, and what do we see as external factors. International trade. International trade, it's clear. It's one and they interact. Global is a different thing. Global is about you deal with one entity where you actually don't have at least clear borders. This is external, this is internal. International is clear. You have one country and another and they interact. One country is internal, the other is from here, the external. Global? No. Of course you have different ways of engagement, different density, different nearness, if you want. Then it's, again, something, if you come to government, it's not about, or not necessarily, not only about yes and no, but about what kind. It's even if I take the railway system in the UK, because I think it's a marvelous example, I could say, okay, they deregulated. They left the provision of railway services to private companies. We don't have to worry about this so much. But what we have to look at is actually what role does the government take? Is it just the coordination of different companies, or is it what was the result of a test, if you want, when there was a huge critique in the UK going on, all this privatization is so bad and the railway services are really run down now as private company. Everything had been better before. And then parliamentarians, conservative parliamentarians, wanted to say, or to show, this is not the case. Actually, privatization was not bad. Services are running, okay, due to government control, government regulation of coordination. And the quality, and this was the amazing thing, that the parliamentarians who went there, who said, we'll do the test, we'll use and go by train across the country to show, to give evidence it is a good service. They said after this trip, if we would have known this before, we would not have taken the railway. It's not secure, it's not properly coordinated, it is run in a miserable way, it's dirty. So you can say, okay, privatize, leave it to companies, but make sure with the ongoing regulation, not only the coordination, but as well security. As well a good service. A good service to all areas. So it is in this way decisively defining what exactly it is about, as well what exactly are the external factors. We talked about it in economics. What can we externalize? And of course it is something that may be good for us, but then we have to think as well about how long does it last? How long is it relevant? When will it affect us? And of course this is not a thing for theory to decide. It is only something where theory has to think about the role of the different elements of the entire system and to try to contribute from there to finding political positions. Theory as such doesn't. It doesn't determine any role there. It doesn't determine the economy, but we use it. There were some things change, and this is important as well. Talking about economics and economy and political economy, we have to be aware of the role of the different levels. As I said, you can have different stances. You have behavioral orientation, economics as behavioral science, as social science, as mathematical model science, whatsoever. But it is something looking at details on how certain mechanisms work in practice. With this, we analyze things. And as I said as well, when we look back in history, we have had economic processes. We have had household economies. We have had the oikos. And I said myself, the oikos was the Greek household economy, household management, was the origin of what we call today economics. Or what we call today the economy. And looking at it, as Aristotle did, as Xenophon did, was about engaging theoretically, analyzing theoretically what was going on there. Was economics, if you want. But it was not. This is the one thing. As I said before, you can change positions. In the global, long-term historical perspective, I would say, yeah, that's the origin, from where it comes. That's why we talk about economics today. and the economy, the household economy. This was simply management. It was not about economics or economy as we have it today. Aristotle, Xenophon, all these people had been philosophers. Then later, we have had this consideration of economics as a separate, distinct science, as a distinct discipline. Which means, with this, we strictly redefine as well the subject. We redefine the economic processes. It is not about what Aristotle said is good life. This is now about production and distribution. It is about markets. It is about gain orientation. It would be an interesting thing to really study if Aristotle could have thought thoroughly about utilitarianism. There's something he did in this area of saying there are some people who are actually looking only at their benefit, their own benefit. Increasing means accumulating things. But actually, he said, these are not relevant. It's kind of non-people. So in this way, you may say, we define in economics what we are talking about. But then, if I look at the history, I come to this point where I had been struggling, at least, with this point that had been made in many essays, that economics would be subordinated to political economy. Now you can say it's a minor question, it's not, or not really, it's looking at the core issue. Leave it to the economists. They can fight about this. But what it is about is to understand really what economics is about, that it defines in a specific way the subject area, that it limits our understanding of complex economic processes, and in this way it is a subdiscipline, if you want, of political economy, or not a subdiscipline, I wouldn't work with this terminology, but it is kind of separating from it, specializing in a way that it says, okay, and this is what many political economists actually did, from Smith to Keynes and others. They said, okay, political economy is the one thing, but then we have to look at the concrete issues. We know about, or we think about, all these larger issues of political economy, and then we think about specific issues of employment. If you read especially Keynes, it's a kind of technical book, it's pretty boring. You find in the Capital of Karl Marx very boring passages, and some people say it is reading like a novel. It's so exciting, there are so many metaphors used, it's so complex, it's really dealing with the entire society. Keynes, again, had and Smith as well, Smith started with it, they have had these two strands of this is economy, this is political economy, and then they have had a philosophical one. Be aware of it as well when you answer these questions in the exams, but as well here for the essays now. Be aware of it. On which level are you working? don't easily submit or subordinate something under political economy or economics. It's again something on the conflict, engagement. You can have beautiful models, and they work, and they lead, in many cases, to a dead end. If you check on the internet, you will easily find it. I guess, type into Baidu equations and economics and religion. You find many people actually who say economics is not really a science, but it is a religion, the religion of equations. We believe in these equations. We make our models, and according to these models, things function. In this way, it is easier for you, if you are aware of this, this is easier for you then to answer technical questions. You simply say, okay, I'm not explaining the world with demand-supply equations, but I'm looking at very simple, limited area. And that's why I can calculate it. I simply assume you are behaving in a rational way. Full stop. Which means, again, bringing us back to this model, or the question of models, this means, again, being aware of what actually are we talking about when we are talking about models. We are taking out a huge part of the complex issue of economic processes, reducing them under certain assumptions we make about reality. And these assumptions are something that make up our main argument, meaning the thesis, what we are interested in, writing an essay. We are not looking at the entire development of the world. We are not, especially when writing a small essay, we are not looking at everything. At this time, international trade is essential for increased happiness quotient. Leave it out. This is an essay in itself, on its own. If I would be serious about it now, I would simply say wrong, full stop. And probably I said it's wrong. Well, I made this comment. But if there is something that is obviously contested, and we talked about it in class, just leave it out if it is not central for your essay. You have only limited space. Don't put everything into it where you think it may be relevant. Concentrate. What is important? In the case of this essay, happiness was not relevant, really. It was not part of the focus. This is what the hypothesis is about. It's not about information gathered. There are so many essays. I thought, it's amazing. There's so much information in it. This is known, I knew it, this is something I never thought about it. It could be, this is something new, this is something actually, it's interesting, really exciting. But what's the point? how does it belong into writing about the development of the Chinese economy or international trade or whatsoever? Focus in the essays, have a hypothesis, have a point of reference to which you stick. This is important as well, writing these essays where it is guiding you while writing. And telling the reader then, this is what I'm writing about. I'm not writing about the world. I'm writing only about this thing. And I will come here now to an end of lecturing at least. We can stay here then and ask questions. The one last point, actually going back to the beginning of the essay, there was the declaration. This is my personal work. And then there was a signature. And the signature was your name typed there. This is not a signature. Everybody can write this. Everybody can especially write it on some device like a computer. But if it comes to the signature, it looks something like this. And to forge this is a little bit more difficult. So the signature is, and this is why I say it here, it's not so much about showing my messy handwriting, but the signature is really something personal. Everybody can write with a computer your name under something. The value is 0. The signature is something that you do. You have not been required really to sign the document, but be aware of it. Signature means, if it comes to the case, I can show that you wrote it. If there would be a dispute, you could always, but I didn't write this. I didn't sign it. Somebody else just typed it in. I can't prove. If you signed it, there is a kind of proof. Why I said at the end is, this is what we want to see, even if we have everything referenced, properly referenced. We want to know this is exactly what you did, what your position is, what you want to say, your hypothesis, your guideline, your topic, out of an area, of a wider area, but this is what you are dealing with and not what is the general stance of it. You put things together, you have references, but again, coming back to the references, it is something where you can say, I took it from somewhere, and this is from where I took it. And if I say this is nonsense, this is wrong, you can say, yeah, fine. But I didn't really say it. I took it from there. Blame the other. If you want to blame me, you can only blame me for not properly checking, double checking if it was the truth. But don't blame me for this had been said. And this means as well, get the context from where it had been said, in which way it had been said. Don't just take one sentence out of something and consider this in the wider context. So as I said, I'll stop here. If there are any questions, we can talk about them now. As I said as well, it is relevant for the exams as well. How you approach questions, what you do with them, and how you answer. Answer to the question, not to what you think the question should be about or could be about, and answer in a way that is concise, at the same time that gives you space enough to express what really is in it. So far, stop here.